Show host, TV host, and he's also the ring announcer for CageFX. Keith, welcome to the show.
You know, not bad to be here tonight. You know, I'm going to need some support from everybody here tonight. I got a little cold going on, but I got my halls. I've been overdosing on cherry halls all night, and looking to hold it down tonight. Good night, all amateur bouts. Sometimes I like the amateurs, you know.
Well, sometimes they bring a little more action, a little more heart, but and you see the rising stars out there.
Well, they're hungry. I always like to call the amateurs the Paul Walker and the Tyrese of MMA. You know, go back to when Tyrese says we're hungry, and that's kind of what these amateur guys are. And these females, you know, they're hungry. They want to move up that ladder. They want to get to that pro level, and this is one of their best times to show what they can do at this level.
But Keith, you've been involved in MMA for a little bit with your radio show, your TV show. You know, you have a little more insight to these amateurs than most.
Yeah, I've been involved with mixed martial arts since pretty much, a lot of people know, since UFC 2. Huge fan of the UFC back in the day before Dana White took it over. I was a big fan of Gracie, big fan of Chemo. Used to like how the bouts rounded out, you know, and it's changed, it's evolved. And it was, at first, I didn't like when the sport evolved to where it was today, but then I had to learn to like it because I was so used to where it was in the beginning. And, you know, it's grown into this, and I love this sport. I could never leave it, never leave it.
You were back when my friends Dan Severin and Ron Van Cleef, when they were getting in the cage, and the rules were a lot different.
Yeah, rules were much more different. And big shout out to Lee Bean. He's going to be fighting Dana B. Severin next month, and you know we're all ecstatic for that. But Dan Severin is a guy who I loved, you know, a lot watching it because he kind of changed that sport. You know, he's the guy that came in and became a well-rounded fighter. You know, back when Gracie and those guys were there, Gracie was jiu-jitsu. You know, this is a guy that went toe-to-toe with Chemo, who had like 5% body fat, and he just sat there and he just healed him to death. And he had a guy like Tank Abbott who was in there. He was just a brawler, but then, you know, Dan Severin comes in. He's a well-rounded fighter. He learned a lot of stuff, and he changed that sport. And then it brought guys like Tito Ortiz and, you know, guys like Chuck Liddell. We're all well-rounded guys, and, you know, brought the sport to where it is today.
Well, it's like an evolution of sorts where everything just grew. Dan Severin, you know, great fighter, humble guy, known for a little bit, and you see how the progression with the fighters. You had a lot of different people in different arenas, karate, you know, taekwondo, kung fu, getting in, you know, grappling, getting in the ring. Now you have to be well-rounded.
Exactly. You know, like a guy like Shamrock, he came in, he was a good striker. You know, he wasn't too good on the ground, you know, so every time him and Gracie matched up, Gracie usually always took it if it went to the ground. If it was a striking match, you know, Shamrock always took it on that end. But, you know, like I said, you got to come in there now. You got to be well-rounded in your sport. And it's great to see because, you know, sports like wrestling, you know, the NCAA wrestling tournament is huge now because you got a lot of guys down there scouting college wrestlers, because really college wrestlers, all they had to look forward to was going to the Olympics, and then their careers pretty much came to an end after that. Now with mixed martial arts, if you're a collegiate wrestler and you go to the NCAA championships, you're a guy that can now say, hey, come to my school, I'm going to bring you in here, I'm going to teach you some stand-up, I'm going to teach you some jiu-jitsu, because you can already shoot like a son of a gun. And that's a guy that these are the guys that you want to kind of keep your eyes on, because these are the guys that may be your next budding UFC or CFX or any of these promotion stars.
Well, look, with CFX, you have Christian Moorcraft. He bumped up to UFC. You have a lot of guys that have that potential. Now, in your opinion, do you see this as the stomping ground for future world champions? You know what?
I've been involved with this sport for a long time, and I've been very, very involved with mixed martial arts here in New England back when Full Force was out there, you know, and just to see guys like John Doomsday Howard, guys like Joe Lozon, Kenny Florian. The Northeast, to me, is the feeder system for the UFC. You got John Bones Jones. It's just sick to see these guys starting here and seeing these guys here, and they're going up and they're in the UFC, and you're like, wow, we're truly blessed to have what we have here in the Northeast, to be honest.
Look, Keith, you know, without promoters like Linda and Gary and other promoters, you know, throughout the country, you wouldn't see these fighters growing up because you would only see UFC-trained guys.
And, you know, it's funny, you speak a good point right there, because I've talked to people outside of Massachusetts and other promotions. I've got people down in Atlanta, people over in California. And a lot of the promotions out there aren't even coming close to what Gary and Linda are doing here, or Peter DiLorenzo, or other guys, you know, Cage Titans Fighting Championship. Nobody's coming too close to what's being done here in the Northeast, and that's why Dana White keeps his eye on it. A few weeks ago, I was down at Bellator, interviewed with Bjorn Rebney. Good stuff, you know, some good fighters coming out of the Northeast.
You go to all the major events, UFC, Strikeforce, all that stuff, and this is comparable, not in crowd size, but as far as the organization and what they do.
Exactly. You know, one of the things I like to see, like tonight, we've got 4 women on the card fighting tonight, and big question is that UFC just bought Strikeforce. They've acquired the women that were in Strikeforce. Dana White has always said he's hated women. I think the women can bring some success to UFC. Question is he going to go that route? Well, he's got a 2-year contract left. Let's see what he can do. But this definitely is one of the promotions that sets the standard here in the Northeast. You know, they have a good crowd. They had a good crowd last night, Mansfield for AFO. And, you know, I love it. I love being part of it.
Keith, I agree with you on that. I was in Ohio when Strikeforce had the female championship match. It was a yawn. I saw CFX, they had their women's fight, their bout. It was exciting. You know, I think the emphasis is not put on the women, it's more put on the men, and the women are kind of like in the background.
Oh, so you caught me off guard, because I thought you were going to talk about the last Strikeforce women's fight that was on Showtime. That was incredible. That fight was incredible.
I had to pull out something negative first.
But, you know, I like the women here, and we've got a good pool of women here. Problem is just being able to keep the fights coming in and feeding it. I think there are a lot of women out there who like the sport. It's just a matter of pulling them in. You've got a lot of boxers, a lot of female boxers in CES. I've asked them, you know, have you ever thought about making that transition? Because it's a sport that is brewing. You know, you could be the next Gina Carano, even though she got a butt kicked by Cyborg. But, you know, it's something to look at. I think it could be a big success for the UFC.
I think with MMA taking the world by storm, and a lot of kids, little boys and girls, they're growing up, they're seeing these guys get in the cage, do their thing. Now the girls, they want something comparable. They see the women getting in the cage, doing their thing. They need someone to look up to.
Yeah, I think within the next maybe 7 to 10 years, my son was actually taking lessons over at Lozon's before he got injured in football, and there were a few girls in his class at the teen level that were really good. So these are the girls. Yeah, they may not be the girls now to fill that pool, but I think in 5 years, I think a guy like Dana White's going to have to look at that pool of girls who are getting into the sport and say, look, you know something, I got to make money off of this because the demand is there.
Dana White is no fool. When he got involved with USC, Semaphore Entertainment owned it before, as you know. He came in when they went bankrupt, did his thing. He grew it to $1 billion entity, and basically he's making strides even today. So, as you said, with the women, that can be the next plateau. Maybe he's playing coy.
Well, every move that Dana has made has been a success. I go back to the whole Kimbo Slice thing. He had said Kimbo Slice would never fight in the UFC. Then he decided, you know what, let me put him on the Ultimate Fighter, let him earn his shot. And a lot of people are like, wow, he's a hypocrite because he said he never would. I says, no, he's a business genius because he's going to make money off of Kimbo either way. They scored huge ratings on Spike with Kimbo there. Kimbo was in the video game. Kimbo lost. Kimbo was gone from the UFC. He made his money. He got his notoriety. Dana White's a business genius.
Money in the bank.
Money in the bank.
You know, Keith, it was great having you on the Warzone. I want to have you on again because I'm sure we can go on for hours and hours and talk about all types of things, but we don't have all that time. You have work to do tonight.
Got work to do tonight. You know, I'm in the ring. Like I said, I'm sucking on the halls right now, and I got to have my voice ready to go so I can get the Can You Dig It going. And I'm looking forward to these amateur bouts tonight. Really looking forward to this.
Get yourself healthy. Go do your thing, brother, and thanks for coming on the Warzone.
Take care.
All right.